If you went grocery shopping this past week, you probably noticed something strange. A few spots on the shelves looked emptier than usual. Maybe you reached for something you always buy, and it just was not there. You probably shrugged it off. Figured it was a delivery delay, or maybe the store was just restocking. But here is the thing. It was not a fluke. And nobody is really talking about what is happening behind the scenes right now. I have been tracking grocery trends for a while now. I check prices. I watch supply reports. I talk to people who work in distribution and retail. And what I am seeing in 2026 is something that should have your full attention. Certain everyday grocery items are quietly disappearing from store shelves. Not because people stopped buying them. Because the supply side is falling apart in ways most shoppers will not understand until it is too late. Today, I am going to walk you through 12 grocery items that are getting harder and harder to find on store shelves right now. Some of these will shock you. Some of them you have probably already noticed. And number 7 on this list is one that genuinely caught me off guard. You will not believe number 7 when we get there. Trust me on that. If you are the kind of person who likes to stay ahead of the curve and make smart decisions before the crowd catches on, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. Because this channel is where you get the real information before it becomes mainstream news. Let us get into it. Item number 1, olive oil. This one has been building for a while now, but in 2026 it has reached a tipping point. If you have walked down the cooking oil aisle recently, you have probably noticed the prices are eye-watering. And in some stores, certain brands are just gone. The reason is a brutal combination of back-to-back drought years across southern Europe. Spain, Italy, Greece, and Portugal produce the vast majority of the world is olive oil. And their harvests in 2024 and 2025 were historically bad. We are talking about production levels not seen in decades. Global olive oil output dropped by nearly 40% compared to the average from just a few years ago. Prices on the wholesale market have more than doubled since 2023, and that cost is now fully hitting retail shelves. Industry analysts have been warning about this for over a year. The International Olive Council has published data showing reserves are at critically low levels. Retailers are limiting how much they stock because they cannot absorb the cost, and some store brands have been quietly discontinued or reformulated with blended oils instead of pure extra virgin. I checked my local Walmart last month, and the bottle of extra virgin olive oil I used to buy for around $8 was listed at nearly $15, and the shelf was half empty. I went to a second store the same week. Same thing. I talked to a friend who manages a grocery department, and he told me they are getting smaller shipments, and the wholesale cost keeps climbing every quarter. If you use olive oil regularly, now is the time to stock up on whatever you can find at a reasonable price. Look for sales at Costco or Aldi. Consider buying in larger containers if the per-ounce price makes sense. Store it in a cool, dark place and it will keep for well over a year. You might also want to start experimenting with avocado oil or grapeseed oil as alternatives for everyday cooking. This is not a temporary blip. The olive trees that were damaged by drought take years to recover. This shortage is going to be with us for a while. Item number 2, canned tuna. Here is one that flies under the radar but affects millions of households. Canned tuna is getting harder to find in the varieties people actually want, and the cans that are available are noticeably smaller or more expensive than they used to be. Several things are driving this. Ocean temperatures have been running at record highs, and that has disrupted tuna migration patterns across the Pacific. Fishing fleets are reporting lower catch volumes. At the same time, new international fishing regulations aimed at sustainability have reduced the total allowable catch in key regions. These are good regulations for the long-term health of the ocean, but in the short term, they are squeezing supply. Reports from the National Fisheries Institute and global seafood trade publications have documented declining tuna landings for 3 consecutive years. Major brands have responded by quietly shrinking can sizes. What used to be a standard 5-ounce can is now frequently 4 or even 3.8 ounces, and the price has gone up on top of that. I noticed this myself about 6 months ago. I was making tuna salad the way I always do, and the can just felt lighter. I looked at the label, and sure enough, the weight had dropped. The price had not. I started comparing across brands, and it was the same story almost everywhere. One store near me had completely run out of the chunk white albacore variety for nearly 2 weeks. If canned tuna is a staple in your household, start watching for sales and buying a few extra cans each trip. Albacore in particular is the variety most affected. You might want to try canned salmon as an alternative. It is often a better nutritional value right now, and the supply is slightly more stable. Store your cans in a cool, dry pantry, and they will last for years. Do not wait until the shelf is empty to start thinking about this. By then, everyone else will be scrambling too. Item number 3. Eggs from cage-free and pasture-raised sources. You already know eggs have been on a wild ride, but what most people do not realize is that the shortage in 2026 is hitting specialty eggs the hardest. We are talking about cage-free, pasture-raised, and organic eggs specifically. Avian influenza has not gone away. It continues to cycle through poultry flocks across the United States, and every time there is an outbreak, millions of birds have to be culled. The USDA has reported ongoing detections throughout late 2025 and into 2026. But here is the part most people miss. The farms that produce cage-free and pasture-raised eggs are more vulnerable to avian flu because their birds have more exposure to wild bird populations. That is the trade-off of more humane farming. The birds are healthier in normal times but more exposed during outbreaks. The result is that conventional eggs bounce back faster after an outbreak, because those operations can repopulate more quickly in controlled environments. But the specialty egg supply takes much longer to recover. Some small and mid-sized pasture-raised egg producers have gone out of business entirely because they cannot absorb the repeated losses. I went to 3 different stores last week looking for pasture-raised eggs. 2 of them were completely out. The third had one brand left at nearly $9 a dozen. A year ago, I was paying around $6 for the same thing. I spoke with someone who works with a regional egg distributor, and they told me the supply of specialty eggs is the tightest they have seen in their career. If you prefer cage-free or pasture-raised eggs, buy them when you see them. Do not assume they will be there next time. Consider buying an extra carton and using them within the 2 to 3 week window they stay fresh. If you have the space and your local regulations allow it, this might even be the year to look into keeping a few backyard hens. That is not a joke. More people are doing it than ever before. Your grocery budget deserves protection. And right now, eggs are one of the most unpredictable items in the entire store. Item number 4, sriracha and specialty. Hot sauces. This one has been simmering for a couple of years now, pun intended. But in 2026, the hot sauce situation is worse than most people realize. Hui Fong Foods, the company that makes the iconic sriracha with the rooster on the bottle, has been dealing with severe chili pepper shortages since 2022. Their primary supplier in Mexico faced repeated crop failures due to drought and extreme heat. Production was cut dramatically, and while they have tried to diversify their sourcing, the supply has never fully recovered. In 2026, sriracha availability remains spotty across the country. Some stores have it, many do not. And when they do, there are often purchase limits. But it is not just sriracha. The broader chili pepper supply chain is under stress. Climate conditions in major growing regions including Mexico, India, and parts of the American Southwest have been unfavorable for multiple seasons. This is affecting everything from cayenne-based sauces to chipotle products to chili flakes. I used to grab a bottle of sriracha without even thinking about it. It was always there, always cheap. Now I check every time I go to the store, and maybe 1 out of every 3 trips I actually find it in stock. Last month I saw a bottle at a convenience store priced at almost $12 for sriracha. That used to be a $3 condiment. If you love hot sauce, start exploring smaller American-made brands that source their peppers domestically. There are some excellent options out there, and many of them have more stable supply chains. If you find sriracha in stock at a fair price, grab 2 bottles. It keeps for a long time in the fridge, and if you are really serious about it, consider growing a few hot pepper plants this summer. A single jalapeno or cayenne plant can produce more peppers than you know what to do with. Do not take your condiments for granted. The little things on your shelf are often the first to disappear quietly. Item number 5, canned coconut milk. This one surprised me when I started digging into it. Canned coconut milk, the full-fat kind you use for curries and soups and baking, is becoming genuinely hard to find in many stores. The The global coconut supply has been under pressure for years, but 2026 is when it is really hitting American grocery shelves. The Philippines, Indonesia, and India are the top coconut-producing countries in the world. All three have been dealing with aging coconut palm plantations. Many of these trees are 60 to 80 years old and past their peak production. Replanting takes 7 to 10 years before a new tree produces a meaningful harvest. On top of that, typhoons and flooding in Southeast Asia have destroyed groves that were already struggling. The Food and Agriculture Organization has flagged coconut as a crop facing long-term structural decline in output. Wholesale coconut prices have risen sharply, and many American retailers have reduced the number of brands they carry or cut back on shelf space for coconut products. I cook a lot of Thai and Indian food at home. Coconut milk is something I always kept stocked. About 4 months ago, I went to buy my usual brand and it was gone. Not sold out. Gone from the shelf label entirely. The store had replaced it with a single alternative that cost almost twice as much. I checked online and found the same pattern across multiple retailers. If you use canned coconut milk regularly, buy several cans when you find them. They have a long shelf life, usually 2 to 3 years. Check discount grocery stores and ethnic markets, which sometimes have better stock and lower prices than mainstream chains. You can also buy coconut cream and thin it with water as a substitute in most recipes. This is one of those items where the shortage is structural, not temporary. The trees are old. The replanting is slow. Plan accordingly. Item number 6. Mustard. Yes, mustard. I know that sounds almost too ordinary to be on this list, but that is exactly why it caught me off guard. Canada is the world's largest producer of mustard seed, and Canadian mustard seed production has been severely impacted by drought conditions over the past several growing seasons. In 2021, there was a catastrophic drought that cut production by nearly 50%. The crops partially recovered in subsequent years, but 2025 brought another difficult season with below-average rainfall in key growing provinces like Saskatchewan. Global mustard seed stocks are low, and prices have climbed significantly. This is affecting everything from yellow mustard to Dijon to whole grain varieties. French-style Dijon mustard has been especially hard hit because it traditionally relies on specific varieties of brown mustard seed that are in the shortest supply. France itself has been sourcing most of its mustard seed from Canada for years, so when Canadian production drops, it ripples across the entire global mustard market. Trade publications in the food industry have been covering this quietly, but it has not gotten much mainstream attention. Most people do not think about where mustard comes from. They just expect it to be there. I reached for a jar of Dijon mustard at my grocery store a few weeks ago, and the shelf was nearly bare. The one jar left was a brand I did not recognize, and it was priced at almost $6 for a small jar. Yellow mustard was still available, but noticeably more expensive than I remembered. I looked it up and confirmed that wholesale mustard seed prices are at multi-year highs. Stock up on your preferred mustard while it is available. Yellow mustard in squeeze bottles has a very long shelf life and stores easily. If you use Dijon regularly, buy an extra jar or two. And here is a tip most people do not know. You can make your own mustard at home with mustard powder, vinegar, and a few spices. It is surprisingly easy, and a jar of mustard powder goes a very long way. Do not overlook the basics. Sometimes the most common items are the ones that catch you off guard when they vanish. Item number 7. GLP-1. Friendly and sugar-free snack products. I told you this one would surprise you, and it connects to something much bigger than most people realize. Here is what is happening. Millions of Americans are now taking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. These drugs have exploded in popularity over the past 2 years. By some estimates, over 30 million prescriptions were written in 2025 alone. These medications fundamentally change how people eat. They reduce appetite, they change food cravings, and they make people gravitate toward high-protein, low-sugar, portion-controlled foods. This has created a massive and sudden shift in demand at the grocery level. Products like sugar-free snacks, high-protein bars, small-portion meal kits, and low-sugar beverages are flying off shelves at rates that manufacturers did not anticipate. Meanwhile, demand for traditional high-sugar, high-carb snack foods has softened. Grocery chains are reallocating shelf space in real time, but the supply chain for these better-for-you products has not caught up with the demand surge. Major food industry analysts, including reports from Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, have documented this trend. They are calling it the GLP-1 effect on consumer packaged goods. It is reshaping entire categories in the grocery store. I noticed this myself when I started looking for specific sugar-free and high-protein snack options. Brands that I used to find easily are now frequently sold out. One particular protein bar I like has been out of stock at my usual store for 3 consecutive visits. I asked a store employee about it, and they said the distribution center keeps shorting them because demand is outpacing supply across the region. If you are someone who eats these types of products, whether you are on a GLP-1 medication or just health conscious, start paying attention to availability patterns. When you find what you like in stock, buy enough for 2 to 3 weeks instead of just 1. Check warehouse clubs like Costco and Sam's Club, where you can often find bulk packs at better prices. And keep an eye on newer brands entering the market, because there is a wave of products being developed specifically for this consumer shift. This trend is not slowing down, it is accelerating. And it is going to reshape the grocery store in ways we are just beginning to understand. Item number 8. Chocolate and cocoa-based products. If you have a sweet tooth, this one is going to sting. Chocolate is becoming a luxury item right now, and most people have no idea why. Cocoa prices hit all-time record highs in 2024 and have stayed elevated through 2025 and into 2026. The primary driver is a devastating combination of disease and weather in West Africa, where roughly 70% of the world's cocoa is grown. Ghana and Ivory Coast, the 2 largest producers, have both seen their harvests decimated by a disease called swollen shoot virus that kills cocoa trees. On top of that, erratic rainfall patterns linked to climate change have further reduced yields. The International Cocoa Organization has reported that global cocoa production has fallen short of demand for 3 consecutive years, drawing down reserves to dangerously low levels. Wholesale cocoa prices more than tripled between 2023 and 2025. That kind of increase does not just raise prices at the store, it causes manufacturers to reformulate products, shrink package sizes, and in some cases discontinue items entirely. You have probably already noticed this without fully connecting the dots. Your favorite chocolate bar is smaller. The bag of chocolate chips costs $2 more than it did last year. Certain seasonal items that used to appear every year are missing. Store-brand chocolate products are disappearing because the margins no longer work at those price points. I bought a bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips last month for a recipe I make regularly. The bag was 2 ounces smaller than it used to be and cost almost $1.50 more. I checked 3 other brands. Same pattern across the board. One brand I used to buy was simply gone from the shelf. If chocolate matters to you, and let us be honest, it matters to most of us, start stocking up on baking chocolate and chocolate chips when you see sales. They store well in a cool pantry for many months. Consider buying from warehouse clubs where the per-ounce cost is still more reasonable. And brace yourself for more shrinkflation in this category. The bars are going to keep getting smaller, and the prices are going to keep climbing. This is not a short-term problem. Cocoa trees take 5 to 7 years to mature. The recovery will be slow. Item number 9. Canned vegetables and canned fruit. This is one that affects almost every household in America, and the warning signs are already visible if you know where to look. The canned goods aisle has been quietly thinning out. Not dramatically, not in a way that causes panic, but steadily, and there are real reasons behind it. Tin plate steel, the material used to make most food cans, has seen significant price increases due to rising energy costs and trade disruptions. At the same time, several major fruit and vegetable canning operations in the United States have consolidated or closed. Del Monte shut down a major canning facility. Regional canners have gone out of business as margins shrank. The labor costs in agricultural harvesting have risen sharply, and water restrictions in California and other key growing states have reduced crop yields for items like tomatoes, peaches, and green beans. The USDA's Economic Research Service has documented declining domestic production of canned fruits and vegetables over the past several years. Imports have partially filled the gap, but imported canned goods face tariffs and higher transportation costs that get passed directly to consumers. I started noticing this about 2 months ago. My store used to carry 4 or 5 brands of canned green beans. Now there are 2. The store brand canned peaches I used to buy for $1.19 are now $1.79 when they are in stock at all. I mentioned this to my neighbor and she said she had noticed the same thing but assumed it was just her store. It is not just her store. It is a national pattern. Build a small rotating stockpile of canned vegetables and fruits that your family actually eats. Canned goods last for years, and they are one of the most practical items to store. Watch for case sales at stores like Aldi, Walmart, and regional grocers. If you have the time and interest, consider learning basic home canning. A pressure canner and some mason jars can turn seasonal produce into shelf-stable food that costs a fraction of store-bought cans. Your future self will thank you for every extra can you put away today. Item number 10. Basmati and jasmine rice. Rice is a staple for billions of people worldwide, and 2 of the most popular specialty varieties in American grocery stores are getting harder to find and more expensive by the month. India, which produces the majority of the world's basmati rice, imposed export restrictions in 2023 that have been extended and modified multiple times since. While some of those restrictions have been partially eased, the overall effect has been a significant reduction in the amount of basmati rice flowing into international markets. India's government has prioritized domestic food security, and with a population of over 1.4 billion people, that means less rice available for export. Jasmine rice from Thailand and Vietnam has also been affected. Both countries experienced weather disruptions linked to El Niño and its aftermath, reducing harvests. Thailand's rice production in 2025 was below the 5-year average, and export prices rose accordingly. Global rice reserves, while not critically low, have tightened enough to push prices up across all varieties. I buy jasmine rice regularly. It is a staple in my kitchen. About 3 months ago, I went to buy my usual 20-pound bag, and the price had jumped by almost $4. The store only had 2 bags left on the shelf where they usually stock a dozen or more. I checked Costco the following week, and their jasmine rice was also more expensive, and they had switched to a different brand than what they normally carry. If rice is a regular part of your diet, buy a larger bag now rather than waiting. Rice stored properly in a cool, dry place lasts for years. Consider buying a food-grade bucket with a sealed lid for long-term storage. If you want to diversify, look into domestically grown long-grain rice from the southern United States. It is a solid alternative, and the supply chain is shorter and more reliable. Do not assume rice will always be cheap and abundant. The global picture is shifting, and prices are reflecting that shift right now. Item number 11. Frozen seafood. Especially shrimp and tilapia. The frozen seafood section has been shrinking quietly, and the reasons go deeper than most people think. Global shrimp production has been hit by a disease called EMS, or early mortality syndrome, that has devastated shrimp farms across Southeast Asia and Latin America. Ecuador, the world's largest shrimp exporter, saw significant production challenges in 2025. India, the second largest, has been dealing with both disease and regulatory changes that have slowed exports. Meanwhile, wild-caught shrimp from the Gulf of Mexico has been in decline for years due to competition from imports, rising fuel costs for fishing vessels, and environmental changes in the Gulf. Tilapia has its own set of problems. China, which produces a huge share of the world's tilapia, has faced rising production costs and periodic disease outbreaks in fish farming operations. Trade tensions and tariff structures between the U.S. and China have added additional cost layers that make imported tilapia more expensive. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and various seafood trade groups have documented these trends. Frozen seafood imports to the United States have declined in volume while prices have increased. I used to buy a 2-pound bag of frozen shrimp at my grocery store for around $12. Last time I checked, the same size bag was over $17, and the store had switched to a smaller brand I had never seen before. The tilapia fillets I occasionally buy were out of stock entirely on my last 2 visits. If frozen seafood is part of your meal rotation, pay close attention to pricing trends and buy on sale when you can. Frozen seafood stores well for 6 months or more in a properly maintained freezer. Consider trying frozen cod or pollock as alternatives. Both are often more affordable and more reliably stocked right now. Also, look at canned options like canned shrimp or canned crab, which can work surprisingly well in recipes and have a much longer shelf life. Protein is one of the most important parts of your grocery budget. Protect it by staying flexible and stocking smart. Item number 12. Store brand and generic products. Across multiple categories. This last one is not a single product, it is a pattern. And it might be the most important thing on this entire list. Store brand products, the ones you rely on to save money, are disappearing from shelves faster than the name brands. And there is a very specific reason why. Most store brand products are made by contract manufacturers. These are companies that produce food and household items for multiple retailers under different labels. In 2025 and 2026, many of these contract manufacturers have been squeezed to the breaking point. Their input costs for ingredients, packaging, energy, and labor have all risen. But retailers pressure them to keep prices low because the whole point of a store brand is to be cheaper than the national brand. When margins disappear, these manufacturers cut production, reduce the number of products they make, or shut down entirely. The result is that store brand items are becoming less available across the board. You might notice it with store brand pasta, store brand canned soup, store brand cereal, store brand cleaning products. The gaps are showing up in different categories at different stores, but the underlying cause is the same everywhere. Trade publications like Grocery Dive and Private Label Buyer have been reporting on this consolidation for months. Several mid-sized contract manufacturers have closed facilities or exited product categories. The retailers are scrambling to find replacement suppliers, but that takes time. I started tracking this at my own grocery store about 2 months ago. I made a list of the store brand items I regularly buy. Out of 14 items on my list, 3 were out of stock on my first check. On my second visit a week later, 2 different items were missing. It is not the same items every time. It rotates. But the pattern is clear. The store brand shelf is getting thinner. Here is what you can do. When you find your preferred store brand items in stock, buy a few extra. Do not assume they will be there next week. Compare prices between store brands at different retailers because availability varies. And be open to switching stores for certain items. Aldi in particular has done a better job than most at maintaining their private label supply because they own more of their supply chain directly. This is about protecting your wallet. Store brands save the average family hundreds of dollars a year. When those options disappear, you are forced into name brand prices whether you want to be or not. Stay ahead of it. Now let us step back and look at the bigger picture here. 12 items. 12 different products and categories. But when you line them all up, a clear pattern emerges. What we are seeing in 2026 is not random. It is the result of overlapping pressures that have been building for years. Climate disruption is hitting agricultural production worldwide. Labor costs are rising across every part of the supply chain. Trade policies and export restrictions are reshaping what flows into the United States. Disease outbreaks in both animal and plant agriculture are becoming more frequent and more severe. And the economics of food manufacturing are squeezing out the smaller producers that kept shelves stocked and prices competitive. None of this is about panic. I am not telling you to go clear out your grocery store. That helps nobody. What I am telling you is to be strategic. Be aware. Pay attention to what is on the shelf and what is missing. Buy a little extra of the things your family depends on when you see them at a fair price. Build a small buffer in your pantry so that when something disappears for a few weeks, you are not scrambling. The people who pay attention now are the ones who will be in the best position 6 months from now. The people who ignore the signs are the ones who will be standing in an aisle wondering what happened. You are watching this video because you are the kind of person who wants to know what is coming before everyone else figures it out. That puts you ahead of 90% of shoppers out there. Use that advantage. If this video helped you, hit the like button. It makes a huge difference in getting this information out to more people who need it. Subscribe if you have not already, because I have more content coming that goes even deeper into what is happening with prices, availability, and the strategies that actually work to protect your family's budget in 2026. Drop a comment below and tell me which item on this list surprised you the most, or tell me about something you have noticed disappearing from your local store. I read every single comment, and your observations help me research future videos. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. Stay smart, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next one.